Hey everybody, welcome back to Enigmatica 2 Expert Pack. Today's episode is all about tying up loose ends, advanced rocketry, and mystical agriculture, so we can finally get into Draconic Evolution, with the goal of getting us closer to the creative tank. Now, I'm not going to waste your time and tell you this is going to be an episode full of technology, because it's not. It's going to be mostly magic. So if you, like me, don't like magic, maybe strap yourself down, because watching this episode is going to be torture. But let's not waste time. Let's get into it. So first on the list of loose ends is going to be the Master Infusion Crystal. This looks horrible, but it's probably not too difficult, all things considered. We just need mana diamonds, mana steel, terra steel, elementium, and ender amethyst. Something we don't actually have. And I am not doing that. So let's duck off to the end for some quick exploitation. So first off, we need to place our laser drill in the end. And now if we remove the bottom bit of cobblestone, it should start getting us some end amethyst ore. Or oil shale, apparently. So now we just chunk load, and we let this accrue some ender amethyst. We can check that off the list. It also looks like we have enough to make the blocks of ingots. So we have our block of mana steel, a block of terra steel, a block of elementium, and a block of mana diamonds. So we can check those off the list as well. We'll throw some ender pearls into our mana pool, and we can check the mana pearls off the list. We can very easily make 4 sparks, so those go off the list as well. Now we need resonating gems, rune of gluttony, pride, sloth, greed, and a celestial altar, which requires, some nasty looking things. Thaumium, pedestals, and slates. Right, that's a lot more than I thought. Maybe we can just ignore this for a while. Well, with the infusion craft being a bust there, how about we look at starting Draconic Evolution? How hard can it possibly be? Well, I'll be honest, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think all of this is actually craftable now. Let's take a look at melodic alloy, which is probably the biggest issue here, because it looks like that. So we actually need to automate depleted LEU 235 fuel, and tiny piles of plutonium. Everything else, I'm pretty sure we can already autocraft, but if not, let's just set some patterns for the blocks and figure out exactly how this is going to work. I'm pretty sure that if we make MOX fuel, which takes 3 bits of plutonium, we run it through our fission reactor, which depletes it, and we get 1 extra pile of plutonium. And then we just smack that back and forth until we get approximately some level of plutonium. That sounds about right. Perfect maths. But first, we actually need plutonium. And for this, we are going to put on our hazmat suit. This is made with some heavy radiation shielding bioplastics and some leather armor. And that'll stop us from dying when we touch the plutonium. Thank goodness for that. Does also make us walk very slowly. So what we'll do, well, first off, we'll make a big piece of plutonium, scan it. I reckon we'll speed that up. That's a bit slow. Good. Scanned. We'll then import it into the bank. We can find it in the replicator somewhere. There it is. And let's just run that for 3. Okay, and now we can just craft that with uranium ingots, which I do believe we have 55,000 of, and a lot more uranium grit as well. I reckon what we will do here as well is we'll set up an auto crafting pattern. We'll commit the ultimate sin and grab a crafting card. We'll put an export bus into the controller for our MOX nuclear fuel with a crafting card. We'll connect it up. So we'll put the fuel in, and we're still negative on heat, which is fantastic. No meltdowns. 23,000 RF per tick, which is actually nothing. So let's just speed this up. Make sure this goes nice and fast. And then we have our depleted MOX fuel, which is not being extracted from there. Oh no, it did. So we should see our depleted fuel. We can set an export bus on our fuel reprocessor for our depleted MOX fuel. And we'll connect that, which then should allow us to reprocess our fuel. Head back, and we should see that our reactor has turned back on. Amazing. And it is using the MOX nuclear fuel to generate us our depleted, and that should automate plutonium. So pretty simple. We just needed one nuclear reactor on standby. Well, I forgot my hazmat suit. Hopefully we don't cark it here. Who's going to win, the radiation or the healing? So a little over half an hour later, we have 33 MOX nuclear fuel sitting in the reactor, always producing more plutonium, but this buffer will fill up before we actually make any profit. And we also have a fission reactor depleting some LEU-235. And we do have a crafting card and a redstone card, which will only allow us to stock up 200. Otherwise, all of our uranium is going to go bye-bye, which we do not want. So I'm going to keep working and I'll get back to you with any progress to report. So a very long time later, we now have 17 tiny piles of plutonium excess. Our MOX fuel has finally backed up, and so now, however long this nuclear reactor burns for, we net one tiny pile of plutonium. So occasionally, I just come along and time and a bottle it, as I have 247 hours in it, and I don't really know where the time went. That's a bit scary. But each one of those is one extra pellet of plutonium. We're also still slowly burning through some LEU-235. I'm not really quite certain why the crafting card isn't working, or why the export bus isn't actually exporting any of the fuel, but it's alright. We've got a few of it, so it doesn't matter. So I think that now means we can request a melodic block. Hold the phone. Does that take a specific... No, it doesn't. Alright. We're going to allow ore substitutions because it's trying to request the caution block and we were only making the normal block. Wonderful. So now we should be able to... Still, are you kidding me? What's going on? I guess I'll just have to set the recipe manually then. That's entirely useless. Alright. Now we can craft one. That is exciting. So there's no quest for this, I don't believe. Yep. No quest for the melodic alloy, but we do need this as it allows us to make draconic cores. And we also need it for eventually the ultimate ingot. There it is. So let's have a look at making these draconic cores. So in the recipe, we know we can make our melodic alloy blocks. We need to set recipes for draconium blocks, genetics processors, dislocators, and elite plating. So dislocators are actually very easy. Let's just make sure we set recipes for all of these, just in case we haven't got them already. The genetics processor is also basically free. We'll just make sure we give it the right control circuits. And elite plating is going to be the hardest part here. So boron is fine. DU plating, I do think we need to make as well. Let's just check. Yes, we need to automate depleted uranium plating. It's fine. I think we can craft advanced plating. We sure can. Now, crystal binder is where we are going to run into our biggest issue. Magnesium dust is fine. We have enough magnesium, I suppose. We'll just set a pattern to crush up our ore. Pulverized obsidian. We've got 1400 of it, so maybe we should be fine. We'll just set a recipe when that comes to it. Calcium sulfate and rhodochrosite. Looks like we've got enough rhodochrosite, but I know we have 0 calcium sulfate. Who's ready for some Greg Tech chemistry? It's not Greg Tech. So calcium sulfate is going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole. So we need calcium sulfate solution in a crystallizer. We then need a nuclear craft chemical reactor with sulfuric acid, any sulfuric acid, and fluorite water. Fluorite water is crushed fluorite and water in a fluid enricher, which is totally fine. And sulfuric acid, there are a few ways of making it. No matter which one we pump into the chemical reactor, it will turn into the one we need. As you can see, it feels like there's no difference there. And so we can make water vapor and sulfur trioxide, so mechanism chemical reactors. Sulfur trioxide is sulfur dioxide and oxygen. And sulfur dioxide, you'll never guess, is chemical oxidizer of sulfur into sulfur dioxide. Is there another way of making it? No. Alright, and a chemical oxidizer. And that's that's terrible. So this is going to be microcrafting hell, but I'll get back to you when I have the chemical line set up. Alrighty, so spaghetti, here we are. This process is actually relatively simple, aside from just a few awful little bits. So we need to chemical oxidize sulfur into sulfur dioxide, which gets mixed in the chemical infuser with oxygen to make sulfur trioxide. We then use this electrolytic separator to get the oxygen, and we just combine sulfur trioxide and water vapor into sulfuric acid. And the water vapor comes from decondensating water into water vapor. We also need to export crushed fluorite into a fluid enricher with water, which makes us fluorite water. We mix sulfuric acid and fluorite water in a chemical reactor, and we get hydrofluoric acid and calcium sulfate. We're going to void the hydrofluoric acid, and then we can crystallize that into calcium sulfate. Now, we don't need much crystal binder, I don't think. It shouldn't take... maybe we want to store a little bit more than a stack of calcium sulfate, but we'll deal with that when it comes to it. What we do need to do, however, is get a fluid trash can. We don't actually... oh no, we don't want to set that. We'll actually just use a fluid conduit into a fluid trash can to trash the hydrofluoric acid, as it has 0 uses for us. And then calcium sulfate will get crystallized. And now if we wanted to make elite plating, we should be able to just request some. And now we have elite plating and a quest. So with all of our infrastructure set up now, we should be able to just request a draconic core. Can you believe that I actually forgot to set the pattern for magnesium dust? No, I hadn't forgotten it. I actually just forgot to connect up the dense ME conduit back to the interface here. Didn't need 2 magnesium recipes. Well, that means we should be able to request our first draconic core. Yes, we can. And now we get to unlock Draconic Evolution. Short little update here. I saw that we were pretty close to finishing Nuclear Craft, so I just went ahead and built all of the machines to 100% the quest for Nuclear Craft. And let's click Claim All. There we are. We have 100%ed Nuclear Craft. There's a lot to go through here, but I figured that just slowly working our way through that is going to be a nice. There are a lot of quest pages here that we need to finish, but going with the simple ones first is always going to be the way to go. I'll see you back when we've got some more updates on Draconic Evolution. So it looks like the next step for us in Draconic Evolution is going to be the Wyvern Core. And there are 2 ways of making this. There's the Advanced Carpenter and the Regular Carpenter. And the Advanced Carpenter recipe is just a bit cheaper. Using 500 primal mana instead of 1000, and 1 shulker shell compared to 2. I don't think there's any other savings, but we definitely need to get the Wyvern Core, and the only thing I can see that is going to be a problem is Stellar Alloy, which looks to be also an Advanced Carpenter Supremacy recipe. So I think the next step is going to be making the Advanced Carpenter, and then we can worry about the rest of this nonsense. So let's get to building the Advanced Carpenter. Right, so 40 minutes later, let me show you what I've got. So we have built the Advanced Carpenter and automated Wyvern Cores, at least in the only way I could think. Now we've also wired up the smeltery, which looks like an absolute abomination, I do have to say. Look what they've done. But what we do is we send all the ingredients of the Wyvern Core into a chest. Lapis dust goes into the fluid solid canning machine, which then gets pumped into a seared drain into the smeltery controller, along with Mirian and Osglow glass. The rest of the ingredients are funneled into an item input, and the fluid is funneled into a fluid input. And all we have to do is hook up the item output, and we should be done. So device online means we can check and request. So let's take a look at the Wyvern Core and see what we're missing. That's interesting. Nether stars and stellar ingots. Right, obviously I need to make stellar ingots, but nether stars? That's a bit of a concern, yes. It would seem that our nether star crafting has been disconnected from the line, so let's just reconnect that. So now we need to take a look and see how we make stellar alloy, which will be another one of these very interesting, rabbit hole here. So let me figure that out and we'll get back. So let me figure that out and I'll show you what I've got. So I think the name of today's episode certainly should be Weird and Wacky Automations here. This is an absolute mess. I'm definitely paving over this, but it seems to work. So stellar alloy is probably one of the most annoying ones because we need liquid DNA, which can only come from the DNA extractor. Oh, I suppose except samples, of course, but minuscule amounts. The best ones to do are butterflies and bees, caterpillars and serums. No idea how to make those, not really going to start doing princesses, so pollen is the next easiest way. Pollen is just pollen collection kit on any sapling, it's super easy. So let's just remove our stellar alloy block, and what we can do is we can request it. So we can just request a stellar alloy block now, and we'll see that everything is in there. Depleted uranium because we need to make it's something else. It's the melodic alloy block first, and then we send 5 red spruce pollen, which is just from a sapling that I found nearby. That sends it into the chest when it's ready. That goes into a DNA extractor, which we have an export bus making genetics labware. And this is probably the slowest process of it all, but once liquid DNA is made, that'll go into our fluid input hatch with all of the blocks, and then get made very quickly. So that is stellar alloy done, which means that now there shouldn't be anything stopping us from making a bunch of Wyvern cores, except for the shulker shell. And I think we really do just have to go end busting to get more of those. So we'll see how long I have to be in there. But for now, we should be able to ask our system for a Wyvern core. Let's just watch it get crafted up. Of course, the Nether Star is going to take the longest because it needs to actually kill a Wither. Ooh, and the Osglow glass and Mirian ingots also take a long time to melt in the smeltery. We can just time in a bottle that. Oh no. Oh dear. That's not what I wanted. Well, we definitely need to change this automation, so let me figure that out. Well, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to figure this out yet, so we'll just do that manually. That can go straight into the input bus, and we now have our Wyvern core. And that should be a quest. And now we really have unlocked a lot of Draconic Evolution. I don't actually know where to go from here, so I might do a little bit of research. But I know that for the creative tank, which is the first thing we do need chaotic cores and awakened cores, which look like we need fusion with awakened things. And chaos shards, no idea how to get those. And the blocks are charged draconium, dragon hearts, the end dragonstone. There's lots more to do, which is concerning, but it should still be a fun ride. So now that we've managed to get ourselves some Wyvern cores, I think let's upgrade our armor and all of our tools. I know that that is required to get the chaos shards, so let's give that a go. So it looks like the tools need Wyvern cores, the Supremium tool, and Wyvern energy cores, as well as Draconium infused obsidian. Which looks very easy, and so do the Wyvern energy cores. So let's figure out how many of these we need and just do some batch crafting. Okay, so we need 9 Wyvern cores, which means we only need to request 8, and we can't for some reason.
Buffer size.
So we'll do batches of 4 then, I suppose. We're also going to need 9 draconic cores. And again, that's our calcium sulfate buffer. So we just have to let that wait. So we've got our cores. Let's set a pattern for some draconic infused obsidian. And let's set some patterns for our tool and armor cores. So hopefully we can request 4 armor cores and 5 tool cores, as well as 20 infused obsidian, 5 tool cores, 4 armor cores. Now we need to make some mystical sticks, and we're going to need a lot of mystical ingots. Let's just make a stack, that should be fine. And now we get the joy of fluid transposing a whole 10 buckets of destabilized redstone onto 9 draconic cores. So now we make the Supremium tool, and then we get to upgrade it into the blank of the Wyvern. In this case, it's a sword, and our wireless network charges it up instantly. Amazing. Let me finish off the tools, and we'll talk about the armor in a sec. So all the tools are finished. We can get all of our quests. Isn't that just beautiful? And now we need the armor, which is a beast in itself. We need almost every piece of armor in the game, and luckily we can make almost everything. We just need to be able to do Arctic hoods and Yeti horned helms, which is a problem because it means I have to go to the Twilight Forest. It also looks like we can configure this. Dig speed multiplier, 100%. Dig AOA, AOA safe mode, dig AOA. I suppose we have to upgrade them. Why would you want to auto fire on? Definitely. Oh, I wonder if that breaks blocks. Let's have a look. Whoa. No, it does. Okay. So maybe while we're around the base, we probably want to have that at 0. All right, and it looks like we can upgrade these, so we'll figure that out later. But I think that's probably a good spot to end today's episode. We've managed to get ourselves all of our Wyvern tools, unlock the first stages of Draconic Evolution, build ourselves an automated advanced carpenter setup, which, oh, boy does it not look good. And we're definitely cementing ourselves now towards the late game. So I want to thank you all for watching, especially Timbo and Danish for supporting the channel. Every little bit means a huge amount to me. And if you like this video and want to see more, then make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to continue to make this series until the day I get all the creatives, which might take a very long time. So if you're in for the long haul, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.